Can we start?
Yep.
Okay. What's your last name?
Nelson.
Nelson.
Sarah Nelson. Yes.
Well, hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with us today. Here's Sarah Nelson. She's a wonderful home organizer. We met at the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses. How was your experience with that program? Wasn't it incredible?
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. I know with my business, I've had my business for, I guess when I went into the program, almost 15 years, and I was really ready to expand. And the program helped me figure out exactly how to do it. You know, I thought I knew how to run a business because I'd been running it for 13 years, but it really gave me the tools and the knowledge to manage a team better, to recruit people better, and to find additional markets.
Right.
It was actually through the Goldman Sachs program that I decided to do sort of a subspecialty in empty nesters and people that are downsizing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how we got together. I love that they always have, well, you finished about 3-4 years ago, right? You did.
Yeah, I think we were the first cohort right after COVID that was back in person. So 2021, I guess.
Oh, wow. We finished ours in 2024, and it's kind of the same path you did, because I've had my business for almost 18 years. But it's always been small because my kids were little, so I wasn't like investing 100% of my time on it. I was, getting referrals, so, doing some business, but not. And then after I did this program, I did exactly what you did. I started focusing on a niche of empty nesters, because it's the same thing. All these people, especially where I live, there's a lot of people with big houses, and now, the houses. We have a client that is just now starting to sell their home, and he was like, oh my God, I haven't been upstairs in my house in 2 years. So they have all these houses and all this space and all this stuff that they don't know what to do.
True.
So it's just wonderful that we met.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be able to do things together. So I would love to know first how you got into that business, which for me, it's like daunting. Organizing, it's like, well, for most people, I think it's very hard. So it's
I definitely.
help.
So when I started organizing, actually, it was before home organizing was even really a thing. I would go and I would give talks to groups, and I would have to explain that I'm not like a community organizer where I'm, working with unions and protests. It's like I go into people's homes and I declutter and I help people live better with less. And that was a new concept. And the whole thing sort of started out when a really good friend of mine was complaining that I was living in Chicago at the time, and she was complaining that her basement laundry area was such a mess that she couldn't do laundry, and then she felt like a failure as a mother. And it was so much more than the dirty socks. It was these things that were signs of something greater. And of course I said to her, listen, I'm really organized naturally. Don't hire somebody. But it got me thinking about, if she's willing to pay for this type of service, maybe there's something there. Like maybe this is something that I should get into as well. And the more that I investigated, it was, at that point in particular, there wasn't a very high barrier to entry. It's not like you have to rent space and get inventory. And I was just I've always been very naturally organized. And so I developed a logo, I got a website, and I just thought, let me try this for a year. And if it works, if there's interest, great, we can go. And if not, I'll figure something else out. At the time, I used to be a museum curator and an art historian, which was fantastically interesting, but I was a bit burned out. And so the idea of, I really wanted to try something new. And I loved the idea of challenging myself to own a business, which I had no background in. So, and then since it started, the whole thing has really taken off. When Marie Kondo came around, that was just amazing. I got so many calls about that. And then the home edit, and with every trend, we've been able to grow bigger and bigger, and the interest has gotten greater and greater.
That's awesome. And how do you get people? Because, for example, me also, when I go sell houses, you go to those houses that have so many things, so many, little things all over the place. They have a lot of personal things, especially when we're selling a house. You don't want to have personal items and pictures all over the place. And it's so hard to tell people, what to take out, what to throw away, what to put away. So how do you handle that? How do you, like, the first time you go into a house, how do you handle how to talk to them?
Well, I actually find it to be easier if you're doing if you're decluttering to sell the house, because there's a really strong motivation there. And I know that the house will sell faster and for more money if it is staged and depersonalized. Correct. And the buyer can walk in and really envision themselves there. And so having that as the goal, having that sort of, dangling in front of the seller, is a very good motivation. And we really just sort of focus on, the whole process starts with a conversation that we have with the client. We walk through the house and we talk about their goals and their lifestyle. And we really focus on the challenging thing when you have a lot of stuff and you've had, a lifetime of experience, is that there's this fear that, you're going to get rid of your history and that you're going to get rid of your identity. And what my organizers and I do is that we work with people to try to figure out, to not look at everything in their home as important. There are definitely really important things in your house that reflect who you are and what your past was like. And then there's just extra stuff. Maybe it's a memory that's not so pleasant, or maybe it's something that you have multiples of it, or maybe it's just something that is ripped or torn or obviously never going to be used. Right. And so we always start with the easy things. We never start with the sentimental. We never start with the hard stuff. We start with, the dry cleaning bags and, all of the stuff that is very obviously, this is not useful in my life anymore. And then it snowballs when people start to realize, okay, I've let this stuff go and I don't miss it. I don't need it. It's been months and I haven't needed it. Then they're convinced, okay, but it feels good. It feels good to have that extra space. It feels good to be able to breathe, to have things be calm. And in the case of a buyer too, it feels really good or the seller, it feels really good to be able to list the house for more money than, they anticipated, just because the house, without all the extra nooks and crannies, stuff with stuff, the closets look bigger. There's more natural light streaming in. People really can see the attributes of a house. And that's really what you want.
I never thought what you just said now. I went like, boom. I never thought doing things like in stages, like you said, they start with the things that don't mean that much. That is basically clutter. Yes. Like you go to your kitchen and have, 3 garlic presses. And yes. Those things are usually not sentimental. So I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Instead of starting with the photo albums, which I think I did that in my last, and I just started sobbing, and then I started, I stopped.
No. Yeah. No, that's what, and I think too, it's the stuff, it's the redundancies, it's the expired medication. It's the same thing, it's expired cans. Like that's the stuff. It's a very black or white. Either this is good or it's not, and you get rid of it. And then it all sort of, and what then happens with the other stuff is there is a lot of stuff that it is important to you. And so then the project becomes, okay, how do we make space for this? Like, how do we make this accessible? How do we make this usable? But you can't really understand what that is or appreciate that or enjoy that if there's all this other extra stuff, if there's all this other clutter that is blocking it. And I think part of the problem too is that clutter is defined, or the definition of clutter changes over time. So I have a fantastic example. One of my most challenging projects that I did when I was first starting out was for a stay-at-home mom, and there was no space in the house. I mean, they had put a closet bar on the wall of their bedroom. So her and her husband were essentially sleeping in the closet because she had never gone through the decluttering process, didn't even know where to start. And she had little kids. I think one was a toddler and one was in preschool. And we're going through her clothes, and she really needs every inch of space. And we're looking through, and she has a whole collection of white linen skirts. And she started to tell me how when she, worked in the corporate world in the summer, this is what she would wear. And, it just represented, a different happy time for her when she was in a very different sort of identity. And she didn't really want to get rid of them. But earlier in the conversation, she had told me too how much she was enjoying being a stay-at-home mom and taking her kids to the park and doing all of that stuff and really loving it. And of course, she hadn't worn the white linen skirts in years because you can't wear white linen to a park. It just no longer fit with her lifestyle. And so we sort of talked about how, 10 years ago, these were an essential part of your wardrobe. But today, you're not going to wear them again. You need that extra space. These are just clutter. And yes, they're beautiful skirts. And yes, somebody else out there can wear them. But for you right now, this is clutter. And it will make you feel so much better if you let them go, if you gave them to somebody who could enjoy them more, and then made room for the stuff you are wearing all the time so that it was easy to get dressed when your kids were ready to go to the park, that you could just put it on and go. And that would make, the whole process of being a stay-at-home mom so much easier for her. So it's things like that. So that's why I think people get tripped up, because they're convinced, oh yeah, I remember this was really useful at this point. And you think, oh, because I used it in the past, it's going to be useful in the future. But that's not necessarily the case, especially when you're moving to a new home, that there are going to be lots of things that you're just not going to use in your new house. And you want to have space in that new house for the new things that you're going to bring in, and the new opportunities and the new hobbies and the new activities that you're going to do.
Absolutely. I'm sure you've had this too, that some people say, like, I've been moving this box 3 times now and I've never even opened it. So
Yes,
they don't even know what's in there, but they just move it from house to house, from house to house. It's so hard.
But that's the easy stuff, because then you can say, listen, you've lived without this for 3 years. How important can it be to your life? If you really needed it, you would have gone into the garage or the closet or whatever and gotten it out. So.
Right. How long does it usually take? Like, do you go room by room, or do you first see everything? Or maybe they tell you they have you only for their closet. How does it go?
Yeah, it really sort of depends on the priority. It depends on the budget. We do go room by room, sort of start to finish. And yeah, we work in, 5 to 7 hour chunks of time. We also haul away the donations. And the key with a really big overwhelming project is to break it down into small chunks. So people come to us and they are overwhelmed because they're looking at it as a whole. And one of the things that we do is we're going to start in this corner. We're going to pick one shelf. We're going to look at everything on the shelf. We're going to go through a process of, do you want this? Is this a donate? When was the last time you used it, et cetera, to help people answer the questions. I call it a guided decluttering. And it really is shelf by shelf. And then we're done with one shelf, and then we go to the next shelf, and then the next shelf. And then we hit a drawer, and then we hit 2 drawers. And it becomes a part of the rhythm where you're asking the same questions, you're going through the same mental process. And then suddenly you look around and you haven't even realized that 3 hours have passed, and what you're left with is exactly what you really want. And everything else that is clutter, that is junk, that's not necessary, has been cleared out. So.
And you haven't had any experience of people saying, no, I didn't, like calling you 3 months later, oh, where is whatever, or what did we do with this?
We do sometimes. I try not to do too much radically different so people can find things. And also at the beginning of each session, we have a long conversation with the person to get to know them, to sort of understand their habits and their needs. And everybody approaches organizing differently. And so what we want to do is create organizing systems that seem intuitive to the person, so that exactly what you said, they're not calling us 6 months later to be like, where did we put the umbrella? Where did we put this? We do always take pictures just for this sort of reason, in case somebody does call, and we can be like, oh yeah, look, I have a picture, it's in that drawer. But the idea is that we're keeping the things that are working, and we're only changing the stuff that isn't working, so that the person can maintain the system more easily. And also, we like working with people with them next to us. We don't necessarily come in all the time and just do everything for them. Certainly the first session, working with clothes, things that are really personal, we would never make decisions for the person. because it's hard to know what really is important to someone and what isn't. And like with this, somebody's clothing style.
And what, like, I know you're in Miami Beach, but like, what areas do you work, or how do you advertise?
Sure.
Do you do it's referrals? How does the
Yeah,
business work?
so we serve all of Miami-Dade County, and we have clients as far, it's Aventura, Miami Gardens, and then all the way down, through Pinecrest. And we'll organize, declutter, we'll work on any room in the house. I've even helped people organize their cars, their wallets, their purses, everything. And what was the other question? Sorry.
Like, do
What
you,
was,
because I used to do a lot of referrals, mainly because I was a
oh yeah.
PTA mom, so I was always, I know you have
Yeah.
little kids, so that's a very good way because everybody knows you and trusts you already. But now my kids have been out of school for 5 years now, so I have to shift all my marketing, and I'm doing a lot of direct mail and email. So working with people that I don't really know. Before it was all people that I knew. So how do you do it now?
Well, from the beginning, the number one way people have found us is actually through a Google search.